Got to remember what my mum said about my posture, right? I'm Jo. So I was born Javeria, and that was my given name. I became really conscious at quite an early age that the name was quite problematic to pronounce in a British context. It got to the point where I knew my name was about to come up on the register, and then I could recognise the teacher struggling and pondering how he or she would say the name, and feeling really embarrassed and feeling as if attention was being drawn to me or was about to be drawn to me in a really uncomfortable way. I was just this complicated name on a register that would present a challenge in terms of having to say it out loud. If they're struggling with that, it makes you feel like your identity doesn't matter as much, or it makes you feel othered because you're made aware that you're different because your name is different. When I became older, I realised that there was a currency to having an anglicised name. Like, it was easier to pronounce, you were sort of accepted a bit more, and you didn't have to go through that embarrassment of being made to feel different. So I changed to Jo when I was around, I think informally, maybe about 13, 14, and then officially started going by that name in college, so 16 onwards. Any new acquaintanceship I made, I would use the name Jo. That's how it phased in. And yeah, it was instantaneous. There's definitely more acceptability. You weren't having to justify yourself as much as to, where you're from, what your cultural values are, and what your parents are, and all that kind of stuff. It got to the point where my given name felt, if it was ever used, it felt like I was in trouble. And I stopped sort of identifying with it. A few years ago, I would have just categorically said, I feel just Jo, that's me. In recent years, I felt more split between the two names. Now I'm thinking, how much of that identity, that Jo identity, how much of that really represents me, fully as a whole? I think at the time when I changed the name and all of those things, I was subjectively, emotionally engaged in a process of wanting to fit in, whatever that means. And as I've grown older and lived my life, I've realised actually there is no such thing as fitting in. There's only different layers of performativity. And I think colonial legacies do lie in the way that we perceive ourselves and our identities and how we want to fit in. The politics are intrinsically linked to race, and the way they percolate in our behaviours and attitudes towards each other on a really micro level in our day-to-day social interactions, to me they represent legacies of colonial ideologies. As I've grown older, I've realised it's increasingly important to be authentic to oneself, because that's what will keep you grounded. Just going through a process of reflexivity on why I changed my name, what that meant, what it has meant for me to date, what potentially going back to my given name and not using Jo at all, maybe, what that would entail, these are all kind of sort of questions, really difficult questions I've been asking myself for a little while now. And I'm still processing, still working through them. And I think when I've arrived at answers that feel comfortable, then I'll probably have made a decision. So watch this space. Don't be too surprised if I evolve into Dr. Javeria, Yeah.